How long will it take for you to reach 10 million pesos in net worth if you invest regularly and start at different points in your life? In this video, we're going to break down different investment paths based on the age that you start investing, whether you start in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and break down how much you need to invest every single month to reach a net worth of 10 million pesos. And as always, let's get into the slides. 10 million pesos sounds like life-changing money because it is. If you reach 10 million pesos, then you're practically in the point 0.5 to probably even 0.1% of the richest people in the country. If you build your net worth to 10 million pesos, then there's a high chance that you can really reach financial independence. Financial independence being this point in your life where your passive income can cover your expenses, at least your lean expenses. For those of you who are landing on this channel for the first time, let me introduce myself. My name is Patrick Mabilog. My friends call me Kiko. I'm an entrepreneur, an investor, a Lord of the Rings fan, and that's my story. If you want to check it out, pause and read. And I have a whole lot of other videos where I talk about our financial independence journey. So we just spent some time over the last week resting before the kids finally finish up their summer vacation. And we chose to spend our time in the Airbnb unit that we've purchased and we've been running for the past couple of years in Iloilo City. And during this time, I, spent a lot of time just watching the sunset over the balcony of our unit, which Iloilo sunsets still underrated, some of the most beautiful sunsets that you've ever seen. But during this time, I was really sitting down and like pondering on what life would be like once we hit financial independence. So that's a very important question that a lot of Filipinos really want answer for. How much do I need to save for a lean retirement? And so we hear the story of financial freedom all the time. People talking about, getting so much money that you don't have to worry about money anymore. And a lot of people focus on your monthly income for good reason, because you definitely need a lot of active monthly income to build passive income. But it's not necessarily, the case where if you do have a lot of money right now coming in, flowing in, that you're going to be able to build financial independence. One thing that needs to get really clear is understanding how much you need to set aside and where do you need to put your assets in order for you to build up passive income so that even if you're not working, income still continues to flow. And so I'm going to talk to you about the number side of things. If you want to talk about the strategies and see all of that, then I encourage you to watch the other videos that I have in this YouTube channel. I've recorded a lot of content about how to create passive income, where to invest, and so on and so forth, right? But today, what I really want to zero in on is the math that will help you to get to a specific number, which is 10 million pesos. And so let me explain why 10 million pesos is the number for me and why the number should be significant for most, if not all of us, at least as a starting point, right? And of course, like I want to make it very clear that our cases, our specific contexts as Filipino families will differ from case to case, right? And we're all going to be very different. But we want to have a starting point. And so I want to really share the number 10 million because this is a really good starting point. And from there, you can kind of like branch out and see what works for you. So why 10 million pesos first? So if you look at 10 million pesos, two things come into mind. Number one is just how doable it is. And I want to share you in a little while and show you the numbers that will show you just how doable this kind of asset like asset in or net worth is really for a lot of Filipinos. Maybe not for all, but a lot of us. But also secondly, because if you look at the math, you'll see just how powerful 10 million can be if you put it in the right asset. So why 10 million pesos? So on average, let's just say, for example, that in the Philippines, if you have an asset or an investment that will give you about 7 to 8% per annum in returns, let's just say 7%, just to be a bit more conservative, you can actually withdraw about 4% of that. And this is all based on something called the 4% rule, which is the rule of thumb that a lot of people in Western countries use to kind of determine whether you can already retire with a certain asset value. And so the 4% rule basically comes from this notion that if you have a fund that can give you about 7 to 10%, and then you just, leave some of that, of course, to inflation. So in this case, if you're looking at the 3% inflation rate, which is the inflation rate that we've had in the Philippines for the past few decades, that you can safely withdraw about 4% of that. So if you invest 10 million pesos, for instance, what that tells you is that you can withdraw 4% of that and you can live off of that as passive income. So if you check that out and if you do the math, right, 10 million pesos, if you withdraw 4% of that every year and you leave the rest to kind of just like compound over time so that you don't run out of money and you allow that asset to work for you, then you can withdraw about 400,000 pesos per year. So that's 4% of 10 million. So divide it by about 12 months, then you're looking at a passive income flow from that asset of about 33,000 pesos per month. If you put that side by side with something like SSS, for example, and you have 33,000 pesos and 18,000 pesos put together, that will give you about 55,000 pesos per month. Which, if you again go back to the inflation rates, right, and if you compute what that might feel like 20, 30 years from now, that will be around 25 to 30,000 pesos per month, which again, by the way, is not a whole lot of money. You might need to get a part-time job or start another business to help you make ends meet, but you do have that 25,000 pesos, in nominal value. And let's just say 55,000 for the sake of simplicity, that will allow you to cover your basic expenses. So groceries, food, utilities, maybe some of your medical expenses. All that to say, right? What I'm really trying to drive here is that if you do hit 10 million pesos, then that can give you some level of freedom by the time that you retire in your 60s. And so this is the number that I really want to present to everyone because of two reasons. Number one, like I said, right? 55,000 pesos per month, 20 to 30 years from now, could help you pay for a lot of your bills. Can it cover all of your bills? Maybe, maybe not, depending on the kind of lifestyle that you want to live. If you do choose a lifestyle where this is uh, all of your source of income, then you might have to live a very simple lifestyle. But also, the reason why I share that is because a lot of Filipinos don't really understand this, but it's highly doable. But it really depends on when you start. Let me go into the specifics now and show you what the math tells us. If you invest, if you want to hit 10 million pesos, how much you need to invest over a certain amount of time. So a couple of assumptions here first, right? Number one is we're assuming that you want to shoot for a 65-year-old retirement. So, which is, basically very close to the average of like when Filipinos normally retire. And we're also like really just working on an 8% annual return. Some will say that that's too high, some will say that's too low. I just want to stay in the middle just so that we're, trying to please as many people as possible. And if that doesn't make you happy still, then I don't know what will. But I'm looking at four different scenarios here, and they're all based on one thing, like how many years you're going to invest, and that really now kind of like tells you about this important principle, which is the idea of time horizon. So the idea of time horizon is essentially it talks about the number of years that you're going to spend investing. And if you look at time horizon, it boils down to one very important factor: when you start investing, what age you start investing. And so I have four scenarios here essentially. Number one is if you start investing at 25 years old, and then when you start investing at 35, so 10 years after, if you start investing at 45 and 55. So looking at this from a decade to decade scenario. So if you start at the age of 25 years old, then that gives you an investing horizon of about 40 years, right? So if, again, the assumption here is that you will stop investing at the age of 65 and you start to live off your investments. So how long will it take you to get to 10 million, that being your target investment? Just imagine that as the peso sign, right? The sad part about investing content and investing calculators, it's so hard for you to find calculators that will give you values in pesos. So if you're gonna start with zero, right, at 25 years old, and you invest once again for 40 years at an 8% return every year, then this is how much that you need to invest every single month. Again, that's pesos, right? For you to reach 10 million in investments by the time that you're 65 years old. So one very important thing that I want to point out here is not is the amount, right? So 3,000 pesos per month. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, right? If you're earning 30,000 pesos, that will be 10% of your take home pay. If you're earning 100,000 pesos, that's only 3% of what you're making. Of course, I want to make it very clear, right, that that really depends on how much you're earning at the age of 25, of course. Just for simplicity's sake, if you start investing 3,000 pesos at the age of 25, this is how much you need to invest. Just this amount for you to reach 10 million pesos. And you see how doable it actually is, right? 3,000 pesos, that's probably I don't know, maybe 30 cups of coffee. Starbucks probably does 15 cups of coffee in Starbucks. So if you give up 15 coffees every single month at Starbucks, if you give that up and you put that instead in investments, then you will end up with 10 million pesos by the time that you retire at the age of 65. One very important thing I also want to point out here is the amount of contributions that you will actually have to give, right? You end up investing only 1.4 million pesos over the next 40 years. But that 1.4 million pesos that you do invest, it gives you a total interest income of about 8.5 million pesos over the 40 years. Now, this is the power of what we call compounding interest, where over a long period of time, even the smallest amount of interest, only 8% every single year, will kind of like snowball into this, this amount, this net worth, this valuation, where almost like 85% of your net worth simply just comes from interest working on your behalf and letting your money work for you. So what happens if you start 10 years later, if you start at 35 years old? If you started investing at 35 years old, that tells you that you only have 30 years to invest. So you only have a 30-year investing horizon. So by that time, if you do start by 35 years old, then you will have to invest about 7,000 pesos per month just to catch up for the 10 years that you did not invest over that period of time. What happens is your contributions actually increase from about 1.4 million pesos, right? Is that 1.490. So let's just say 1.5 million pesos. Now you have to contribute about 2.5 million pesos, which again is not a whole lot compared to you now building 10 million, because at this point about 7.5% or 7.5 million of your net worth still comes from just compounding interest, letting your money work for you. So that's, what happens if you start investing 10 years later. What happens if you start investing a little bit, even a little bit later, right? And you start investing at 45 years old. So, oh, that's actually wrong. So now you only have 20 years of investing horizon left. So if you only have 20 years, then you're actually going to have to invest a whole lot more. You're in, like, more specifically, you're going to have to start investing 17,000 pesos per month. So you see the math kind of playing out here, right? So the later that you start investing, the more that you're going to start to have to contribute over the remaining time that you have. Why? Because now you don't have that investing horizon working to your advantage. So at this point, you're going to have to contribute about 4.2 million pesos. And the total interest that you're going to earn over that period of time will only be 5.7 million. So it's starting to really drop. And then the last one, if you start at 55 years old, now you only have 10 years left to invest. You're going to have to invest a whole lot of money. You're going to have to invest about 55,000 pesos per month just to hit your goal of 10 million pesos. So you're going to contribute about 6.6 million pesos, and your total interest earned will only be about 3.3 million pesos. So all of that to put together, right? Kind of like just put that in a nice graph for us to see. If you start at 25 years old, you have 40 years to invest, you're going to need to invest 3,000 pesos more or less per month. And then the growth from your compounding will be about 8.5 million. So percentage from that growth is about 85%. If you start at 35 and you only have 30 years of time investment horizon, you're going to have to put in 7,000, so more than double than what you start at the age of 25. And the growth that you get from compounding is still pretty good. You'll still get about 7.5 million pesos, which means that 75% of your total net worth of 10 million will come from compounding alone. And at 45, you only have 20 years left. You're going to have to invest a whole lot more, about 10,000 pesos more at 17,000 pesos. About half of your money will come from growth and compounding. And if you invest at 55 years old, then you only have 10 years left of time horizon for you to invest, and you're going to have to invest in like significantly more compared to if you invest earlier in life. You're going to have to put in 55,000 pesos per month. So let's just say, for example, if at 55 years old, you're now earning 100,000 pesos per month, more than half of that will have to go into monthly investments just for you to hit that 10 million mark. Point I'm trying to really make here is this, and this is a very important principle that I learned in investing and I want to share with you. Time in the market beats timing the market. There's always this idea of like, I just want to wait for the right time to invest. And um, the right time to invest is the earliest that you possibly can, because the more time that you spend investing and allowing your money to compound over time, the lesser that you're going to need, like capital wise, for you to build up a net asset investment that will cover your expenses through passive income. So a couple of final thoughts I want to leave here, right? Number one is an early start can really do wonders. That's really the most important point. But also I want to make it very clear, right? It's very important for us to respect the seasons, because truth of the matter is not everyone can start at 25 years old. That's not my point. At 25 years old, when I started, well, I did not start. I started at 25, 20, no, not 25, 26, 27 years old. Because in 25 years old, I was still in a whole lot of debt. There were things that happened, life happened. We incurred a lot of debt because of some medical emergencies and so on and so forth. And if I started investing then I probably would have been in a worse financial situation. My point here isn't that you should start investing at 25 years old. The point is that you should start investing when you're ready, because yes, there are seasons in our life. And there are a lot of things that you need to take consideration. Number one is you need to pay off your consumer debt. You want to have emergency funds set in place. And maybe I'll make an entire video of, the checklist of things that you want to have in place. Or actually, I already have a video for that. I think I do. And if I do, then I'll probably link it here somewhere in the description, and or probably here somewhere in the video if you want to check that out. And but like there are some things that you want to get in place, right? But my point in saying is simply this, that you want to respect the seasons. But the sooner that you can start, the more, or the less rather, that you will need to invest, like capital wise, for you to get to a certain amount in a by the time that you start thinking about retirement already. But also the last point I want to give here is that procrastination is really your biggest threat. It's not your income, because a lot of the times when I ask people, can you start investing, the main thing that I hear isn't, oh, I have an emergency, or oh, I still have to start thinking about other important milestones in my life. No, the one thing that I hear a lot is, you know what, I'll start investing next year because I still want to enjoy life, right? And nothing wrong with enjoying life, by the way. You can set aside money for that. But if you just choose to enjoy at the expense of starting your investment journey, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but what I'm saying is that if you put it aside, you're going to need a whole lot more money later on just to catch up with your investments. So hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully, if you see the math, you get the point that the sooner that you can start, the better. Because if you want to build up 10, 20, 30 million, 50 million pesos of investments, starting off earlier in your life and giving yourself more time horizon to invest will definitely put you in a better position, because you're going to need less capital and you're going to need to set aside less money for you to hit your milestone. So hopefully this video was helpful and that you learned something that can help you to build your own financial independence journey. So as always, if you found value in this, then hit the subscribe button, share this with a friend who you think can really benefit from this kind of content. And I'll continue to make more videos on investing, financial independence, retirement, and so on, because by doing that, my hope is that more Filipinos will continue to build towards financial independence and we can have more financial freedom together. So thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.